Hello, welcome back. This is the third video in the repair station process. So this time I'm going to be covering the mechanical mechanics, which are going to be like small rodents with robotic limbs. They're going to have a body, like a lower half, where they can functionally move along the rail. So yeah, robotic limbs, tools for hands. Let's get on with the rail rats. Okay, at first I'm just exploring different small creatures. I started off with mole rats because I thought they're quite funny. And they've got a funny shape to them, and you know, they're very wrinkly and strange. Quite fitting for like a cybernetic creature. Cyborgs usually have like pale skin and like visible veins and things like that, don't they? So it's kind of a fun thing to get behind for the first ones. I'm just exploring. I've got a bit of reference off to the side of different animals. I'm just deciding what shape I actually want them to be. I'm thinking relatively small body, with the robotic parts being a bit larger. I'm deciding how big the head for the creature should be, because I want them to be quite caricatured. So this one I've just gone with different tools, so like a drill and some kind of vice grip hand, and I had a bit of trouble trying to get the legs to function in a way where it's quite satisfying. So at the moment I'm just throwing a wheel in, just for now, while I get the top half fixed in, because as you watch, there's quite a lot of exploration I do here. I looked at different things for reference, so some of the things, I don't know if you guys remember, but the Robot Wars, there was a couple of video games for that as well, and they're quite a cool inspiration for like strange looking robot shapes. Some of them are quite humanoid as well, so it's kind of fitting to have like shapes from them, as this is kind of like a robotic, you know, faction. Yeah, as you can see, I'm just going through and adding different shapes to the existing bits, just to try and get some interesting silhouettes going. I think eventually I realised that a simple silhouette would be better, because you don't really want it to be grabbing too much attention, as it's kind of a background asset. It's not like a main character kind of energy. So albeit they're quite strange and weird, they need to be a little less attention grabbing than, say, the drivers for the vehicles or the gunners for the vehicles. I didn't quite like this in the end. I thought I'd try having like ears that are kind of like speakers, but I feel like it takes away from the silhouette a little too much. Like if you're gonna have the ears, they're gonna add to the silhouette. I'm going for a bit of a less organic face for this one, like more machine. I feel like the shape was a bit off with it though, so I didn't really like this, but I stuck with it just to finish it and see how it looked. Added in as like a single wheel for its legs, rather than like a folding piece. I was kind of a fan of this one, where it's like most of the arm is organic, but then the robotic part starts at the end, and the panel on top of the head is quite fun as well. So this is when I looked at something called a lesser blind mole rat, and I think they just look so fun and strange that I decided to use this going forward, more the main design. I think I explore a little bit more, but yeah, this is the design I kind of end up going with in the end, because it's just so cool. So this one here to the right of the lesser mole rat I thought was quite a cool looking creature as well. So I think if I ever go back and create a second variant for the mechanics, it would be something like that. And as you can see there, I explored a little bit on the blind mole rat and just had like a panel on top, and I think that's what I go with for the entirety of the thing going forward. I just try and mess around with the scale of the parts of the body. So I think this one, while I did kind of like, it just didn't seem aggressive or scary in any way. I know it's not supposed to be, but a cybernetic faction, I'd rather have something looking a bit scary than looking a bit weak. I think he was a bit too small. So here I just mess around with the shape of the actual head and then just adding different pieces on top just to see what looks cool. Yeah, I do explore a little bit more on a different style. So after this design, I decided to make something kind of skeletal. So that I just kind of explore that while I'm still kind of loose. I didn't really resolve the lower half very well on this one though. I think it put me off the design going forward. I also decided instead of the hinge being at the front, it would be at the back. Be a bit more convenient for a mechanic to move around and use. A bit more practical. And this one doesn't have any kind of crane system on it. And I think in the end, that's something that I decided is kind of needed, considering it's a small creature character, and it needs to reach the vehicle to fix it. And this is more or less the design I go with now from here. I added like Scalextrics. That's another reference I've got here. So on Scalextrics they have two wires with exposed metal that touch two strips on the actual circuit, and they, you know, move the car along. So I thought it'd be kind of a cool thing if it's kind of, you know, repurposed Scalextrics for the actual movement of the characters, or at least the style. And this is, I got trying out the like a thinner build for the arms. Now I kind of liked it. Makes it look a bit more like a skeleton or something. I'm just exploring the shapes still, just not quite happy with how things look, but this is the part that I mentioned earlier where I go in and explore the shape of the head and just mess around and see what, you know, what looks cool on it. I did settle in the end that the smooth head is kind of the creepiest and weirdest, but it's fun to do the exploration just in case something pops out. But I also had the idea that maybe if I built some of these assets out, they could be good for variants for the creatures. Maybe there'll be like 3 or so of them, so like a little team, and that would differentiate them a little bit along with some kind of colour differences. I did quite like this Cyclops eye from the screw in the centre of the head, so I think you might see a little flash of me exploring that along with like different spray paints on top of the head just to give like funny little expressions, and I think that could be cool to add in later on. But for now I just go over the different limbs attachments that I can add to the model to make it you know, different variants do different things, just to add a bit of variety. I quite like the idea of a blowtorch as well for an arm, a little bit of a light source on the model as well, which would be quite cool. I ended up deciding that the model was a bit too thin, so I started to add a little bit of width to the arms. and sorting out making sure they're symmetrical as well. I think I ended up taking away the aerial on top of the head, like the antenna. I just saw then a little flash of like graffiti on the head. Yeah, I think this panel was quite cool. Had a bit of asymmetry to the model, but I think in the end I ended up taking that away as well. Didn't quite think it worked. Just trying to get some of the metal textures to read properly. So this is I end up adding a bit of graffiti on this one, and I end up deciding that maybe I can keep something like that for a different faction. It doesn't quite fit this faction, so I'll add something, because we have a kind of a spooky faction in the game as well. Here's like a little breakdown of the lower legs, limbs, whatever you want to call it, the wheel. Once I've done this, I start adding in an outline around it as well, which I think might be a bit premature, but we do go back in and fix any errors later on anyway. But the outline is kind of necessary for the readability for the art style. Once the ad set's ready to be made in 3D, you want to know what it's going to look like. So I'll probably paint over most of this after it's done. But I wanted to get a good idea of what it would look like, and I'm relatively happy with it. There's a few changes I would make looking back at it, but I didn't want to spend too much time considering this is an asset that we're not really going to see. It's more of a background character. It's a good starting point. I had to resolve some of the design problem of not being able to know where the wire is attached to, so I thought maybe a little battery box with the fuse at the back there. After watching some videos, I kind of got a bit inspired to make some different variants, just in case I ever come back to this to create like a second head. Looking at these, they're pretty cool, but I think I would change little bits and maybe even add some of the earlier concepts I had in the more rough phase. So I decided to do a separate illustration drawing just to see what the different tool hands would look like. So I did the blowtorch and the drill, I think, just to see. This becomes just like an image on the side, and it kind of informs the shapes for the main image, because it's not very readable in the main illustration of the shape of the head from the side. So I end up doing a second illustration from the back, and then an illustration I add on for the lower leg piece that's at the bottom there, just so it's clear. I wanted the wires to have an actual, place to go from his head, so it goes into the back. And I do think the silhouette's quite satisfying for this illustration. A little more of a successful shape than the main piece, I think. I just do a little rough pass over it, and I think I'll go back to it later and just add a bit of texture. And this is just one final head because I had an idea, so I just thought I'd jot it down. Kind of reminds me of Borderlands or something. So this is where I pick my colours. I consciously went with a colour scheme of like a Titratic scheme, so that kind of it helps inform what colours I can choose, you know, being like a limited palette, and then I'm not floundering around trying to choose colours all the time. I do end up toning down the green on the arms, like the blue-green, because I feel like I have a faction in mind without spoiling anything, but that can be one of their main colours. So I mean, we've already chosen orange for this faction anyway, so I decided to add what kind of looks like suspenders, but made of metal. I thought that would be a nice touch, because I feel like there was too much fur showing, like it was kind of an unresolved space around his, like under his arms. I'm just going over the illustration for the back and going into a lot more detail and colouring it in later. It's not quite the same level as the main illustration, but I thought I'd have to have it just so it's clear where pieces are and where pieces go. And now I have a little bit of a fight with the lighting while I'm detailing stuff. I think the panel on the head disappears soon, because I feel like it's getting a bit too busy on the head. Okay, so now I'm just colouring in, as I said, colouring in the back. I don't bother with the lower half because that's kind of already resolved. I thought it'd be nice to have kind of a small gradient, but nothing too crazy. You can see little flashes of me exploring the funny little faces. It could be a cool thing that we could have variants of. It could be as simple as that, colouring little decals on the body to separate the different characters. Could even be like numbers on their foreheads or something. So now I'm just kind of slowly getting the final details, just to make everything more readable. Yeah, I was about to do this illustration, but I decided instead I would explore like a complete side profile instead. I think that's gives more information, more necessary information than the other one would have done. I think it would help me out when it comes down to modelling, to have a side profile view. And then I attach it to the lower half here once it's done, and just rework the size of everything. I think things move around quite a lot toward the end. But yeah, we're getting close to the end of the video now, so yeah, the next video is going to be the fixed mounted gun, because we need to get some of those rendered up for the game anyway. So that's going to be the next video. Thank you guys for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next one, and here's the final piece.